that. And so, and we'll start the recording. And remember, this is a public meeting, which is recorded, and those recordings are available to the general public as well. So with that, Abby, you want to start, then pass it to someone else?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. Abby, she, they pronouns. I'm with the Clackamas County Resolution Services Community Dispute Resolution Center. And I'll pass to Annie with cute new hair.
Thanks. I'm Annie Vancouvering with the Hillsborough Mediation Program, which we service Western Washington County. I'll pass to Patrick Sponsler.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Sponsler. I'm the administrator of Resolution Oregon at the University of Oregon School of Law. And I will pass it to, let's see, I'll pass it to Nathan.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nathan Clark, he, him pronouns. I support the Homeownership Division and the MMCRC at Oregon Housing Community Services. I'm on our GR team, and I will pass it over to James.
Good morning, everybody. My name is James Klosnick. I'm a communications coordinator at OHCS, and I support the Homeownership Division. And I will pass it to Cindy.
Hi, I'm Cindy Buckner. I am an analyst, and I work with MMCRC, helping here with DRAC and with the registration of the manufactured home parks and marinas. And I will pass it to Miss Judy.
I am Judy Farrell, program analyst from MMCRC as well, and we'll pass it over to Brian.
Yeah, Brian Garkey. I'm with Resolve in Medford and the co-chair of this group, and my illustrious counterpart is Heather, who is, don't believe, here today, if I'm correct. Yeah, she is off today, and we'll pass it to Bill.
Morning, everybody. Bill Meitner. I'm an attorney at Davis, Wright, Tremaine in Portland. I represent a lot of manufactured housing landlords and floating home marina owners. I'll pass it to Adrian.
Hello, my name is Adrian. I am a program analyst too, here at OHCS, working with some research projects across kind of all of our programs. So I will pass it to Rick.
Good morning, everyone. Rick Abrego. I'm the assistant director for manufactured housing and MMCRC, and pass it to Everett.
Good morning. My name is Everett Horvath. I am the housing navigator for the manufactured home replacement program.
And Kat, go ahead.
I'm Catherine Dalton. I'm the Director of Community Solutions of Central Oregon for the CDRC that covers Deschutes, Jefferson, and Crook County. And I don't know who hasn't gone, so someone needs to hand it off for me.
Pat.
I'm Pat Wachter. I have an echo. I manage 4 acres in Woodburn, Oregon. And I've been here 21 years.
And John?
I'm John Van Landingham. I work as a lawyer for the Oregon Law Center based in Lane County, and I've been doing this for 48 years.
And Pat, just so you know, I'm showing you in the meeting twice, so I don't know, that's probably where the echo's coming from.
So Heather's not here, is that right? And also not Tara?
Correct.
I'm here.
Oh,
Oh, you,
Yeah, lots of people here today. Tara Cleland, she, her pronouns, and I'm with East County Resolutions. We serve East Multnomah County.
And I'm Nate Powers with Community Mediation Services. We serve Multnomah County and Clark County, Washington. So we are new to the MMRC game here in Oregon, but we've been doing this work for quite some time in Clark County, Washington.
Darren?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Darren Riley, he, him. I am the executive director for Center for Dialogue and Resolution based in Lane and Douglas and Coos County.
Stephen?
Steven's being his data self and being quiet.
He might be away from his desk. Stephen, your mic's off if you're speaking. He might be away from his desk.
No, I'm there. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Cornwell. I'm a data analysis here at OHCS, and that's my introduction. Good morning.
Great. Anybody we missed?
Good morning. I'm Carrie Hodai. I manage the Manufactured Home Replacement Program at OHCS.
And I believe Heather says she's in the waiting room. I just got a text from her.
Does anyone on my team see her?
I'm looking.
I'll try to message her the link. Maybe she's in the wrong room.
Yeah, and have her log off and log back on. Maybe she's been on too long. I don't know. I don't think anyone saw it come up.
Yeah, I'm not showing anybody in the waiting room for this meeting, so she might be in the wrong.
I know there was that update to the link. She might have that old one. And while folks are doing that, as far as our membership, if we can take a look at the minutes from the April 2nd.
And while everybody's looking, just a caveat on that is these days we're a slave to technology, and when we hit record, we're assuming it's recording and we're able to access that recording later. In this case, it did not. So we had asked everyone to chip in where they could on what they remembered from the meeting. So if something's missing, it's because it is missing. We didn't remember it, or no one remembered it. So it's one of those things of we did the best we could with what we had. So sometimes technology is great, and sometimes because we're so addicted to it, it's useless to us when it stops. So anyway, that's just a little caveat with the notes in case you see something missing. And we're more than happy to put it in there.
I'm so happy. Okay, so
I think that was Pat trying to share something. with that, if someone wants to make a motion around the minutes. If there's no additions or corrections, given our technology issues.
I move approval.
We have a-
Second.
Great. All in favor as far as committee members? Any opposed? Seeing no hands or anything, minutes are approved. And welcome, Heather. We did introductions and shared that you and I were elected as co-chairs of this group. And I've just gone through the minutes and approved those. And I believe our first piece on the agenda is just to verify there was no public comment submitted. For this meeting, and also see if any of our guests had anything they wanted to add under the public comment. Being that we have a number of directors here today. Seeing none, and Judy, we didn't receive any into the office.
I'm just an observer. I think Cindy is the point person now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we did not receive anything, no.
Great. And with that, our first item on the agenda is we asked Patrick or Crowdham, one of the two, I'm not sure which it was, we just went through the grant process for the 2-year biennium piece and wanted him to give an opportunity to share with the group where things are at as far as the CDRCs and that general overview of Resolutions Oregon and the university and grant process. So it's all yours, Patrick. I don't know if they gave you powers to be able to share your screen or not.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Brian. I do have a little slide deck that I was going to use if I am able to share.
Unfortunately, I think we can only share if it is only OHCS staff. If there are other people in the meeting, I don't believe we're able to share. Oh,
How'd
it
that
did
go?
share. Oh, that's perfect.
Perfect.
All right,
I
perfect.
retract
I
that.
thought I'd just give it a go and see what happens. The buttons were there. Well, wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation. Rick and Brian, I appreciate you inviting me to share a little bit about the Resolution Oregon network, kind of what's been going on across the state with the centers. Again, my name is Patrick Sponsler. I'm the administrator of Resolution Oregon. And I was a member of this committee, I think it was through 2021 through 2023. So I just want to thank all the members for your contributions and taking time to focus in on the dispute resolution processes, mandatory mediation processes for manufactured community members. It's really, really valuable. So really big gratitude to all of you for the time that you put in on this committee. So here in the next 15 minutes, I wanted to give just an overview of the kind of the history of the CDRC network in Oregon, message some statewide impacts that the community resolution centers make, share a little bit about the grant distribution model, and then speak to some homelessness prevention outcomes that we've been highlighting, and then also some MMCRC impact data that we collect at our office as well. And I believe there's time at the end for some questions. If you have questions throughout, you're more than welcome to stop me while I'm talking as well. Since I'm sharing screen, as you probably all know, your boxes get kind of small. So just let me know or speak up if you have a question throughout while I'm speaking. So yeah, so going, looking in back, the community resolution centers, we have a 40-year history here in Oregon. Community mediation has its roots in the civil rights movement of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. This was inspired, the act inspired alternative or appropriate justice models that centered marginalized voices. The institutional structures of justice that were recognized as just not adequately serving marginalized community members. And so with the belief that the capacity to resolve many civic disputes lied within the community itself, CDRCs began to pop up nationally. And here in Oregon, it was in 1980 when we started to really see the movement of CDRCs emerging in communities across the state. In 1990, the ODRC, the Oregon Dispute Resolution Commission, was established in Salem, and the ODRC was created to support community, public policy, and other forms of mediation throughout the state. In 2003, the ODRC was defunded, and the statutory standards for community mediation were moved to the University of Oregon School of Law, where it resides today. And throughout since that time, the CDRCs have mobilized to meet many needs, but many meet housing crisis statewide, notably the foreclosure crisis back in 2011, and then the ongoing eviction crisis that we are in today. And to highlight, in 2023, we received an investment from OHCS in the legislature to conduct an 8-month eviction prevention mediation project in 13 counties. And across that 8-month period, the CDRC stabilized more than 750 households and saved the state between $10 and $25 million in downstream costs. The ROI on that investment was exceptional. In 2024, Resolution Oregon marked its 20 years of public service to the state. So what happened in that 20 years? You can see here that many families have been positively impacted by the community resolution centers in the past 20 years. This data just represents the 20 years that the programs have been served with Resolution Oregon here at the UO School of Law. The centers do work in areas of housing stability, violence prevention, public safety, and community education. And as you can see on this infographic, they've impacted over 400 or almost 400,000 youth and adults have been impacted in over 100,000 cases. More than 4,000 mediators have been professionally trained. And you can see the high agreement rates and high satisfaction rates, which are all well within national standards for best practices of mediation. The network continues to have a generational impact for community members and helps to build resilient communities. Beyond holding the statutory authority here, we allocate the funding that comes through some funding that comes through the state legislature to centers across the state. Our current model allocates it and ties it to key aspects of our office's legislative purpose. So some funds are going to be awarded for administrative services. Then those administrative services support volunteer mediators across the state. We've identified high poverty areas that then there's some funding that will go to extra funding that goes to those areas to ensure that no members of the community are being turned away for services. And then there's some more dollars are allocated just based on the percent of population in the state. And then that produces the individual grant award, which then supports the conflict resolution skill building and fosters the statewide network, ready to respond. All of Resolution Oregon's grant funds have to be matched 100%. And so the funds that come through this office will only ever be 50% of a center's total budget. And so other sources such as MMCRC funds are just crucial to sustaining service provision and responding to communities in crisis. And beyond the grant allocation work that we do, we help build effective policy making and do system building for local and statewide policymakers. I want to focus in a little bit on with our current homelessness crisis, wanted to look at come back to housing stability work and our eviction related cases. We in the community mediation field have long felt that from our qualitative feedback that we've gotten from tenants, we've long felt that we've been helping stabilize housing and reduce homelessness. But what we have not had was a lot of data, quantitative data around this piece. So we've been looking in to try to uncover what actually is going on in that situation from these agreements. What we know about mediation is that in court related or in FED related, eviction related cases, is that mediation will really slow the process down. It has the ability to improve relationships between the renter and the housing provider. And in mediation, you can negotiate payment plans, you can negotiate move out dates, which is something which these aspects will not happen in court or rather unlikely to happen in court. And what we see from our data is that that folks that participate in mediation, their stress about the conflict decreases dramatically, and we wanted to explore further around what actually happens in those outcomes. I mean, as you can see here, the cost, the downstream impacts of cost savings to the state is pretty high. But what happens to the homelessness population? That's been an area that's been of concern, or just some area that we haven't really known. And it's really revolved around these negotiated move out dates. Without a lot of quantitative data, we've been really trying to figure out, well, what actually does happen? You know, we hear feedback from our tenants that this is something that that is helping them be able to stabilize their housing, but is it really? What do we have any data out there? Nationally, there is not a lot of data around this. And when you negotiate the move out dates, what we call these are graceful exits. These graceful exits allow for renters to be able to secure new housing, to be able to get rental supports through OHCS and other supports, secure their possessions, and it creates more time for peaceful transitions. It really depressurizes the situation when they have extra time to be able to secure that new housing. And hopefully we'll never see again an officer shot serving serving an eviction notice like we did in Washington County last year, where an officer was critically wounded while serving an eviction notice. So the situation just really helps to depressurize and secure that new housing in that time. But so while we felt this was true, what information do we have that really showcases that it was true? So we started asking and we worked with Clackamas County Health and Housing and Human Services to tie some HMIS data together from the Mediation Center in Clackamas County and with all of their homelessness prevention programming. And what the analyst uncovered was that across the 2-year period that she reviewed, there was only one tenant that they were able to find that was experiencing homelessness. And I want to note that while we were looking at trying to uncover what the move-out agreements, these negotiated move-out agreements, they weren't able to isolate that data. So this data is actually all the data. Everybody that's interacted with the Mediation Center in Clackamas County was found to be in a stable housing situation. And I will offer that this is the first known analysis that's been done, and this is probably imperfect. There's probably some pieces that need to be strengthened, and yet this is the first indication that we've been able to get that the mediation program is stabilizing and supporting a long-term stability for these for many renters that are going through mediation services. And it really suggests that further investment in the mediation program would support Oregon's goals in reducing homelessness. So that's a pretty big picture. That's some of the work that the centers are doing in the homelessness prevention area. Coming back to MMCRC, the data that I receive in my office over the last 20 years, we do collect data on MMCRC cases, but some of the cases get populated into other areas of our data sheet. So, for example, there are some cases that are MMCRC related, but they're court connected. And so when the data gets presented to my office, it presents as court connected data in FED. But the cases that were just isolated for where they were non-court connected MMCRC cases. Over the last 20 years, we were able to see that there's over almost 2,000 cases, 2,000 households that have been impacted by this work, and through the partnership with MMCRC. And of those cases, 84% of those were mediated agreements were made in those cases. So, as you can see also from these testimonials, we have many testimonials from renters, from housing providers, from judges, from attorneys that all support the work that the mediation centers are doing and feel that what the impact that they're making in their community is very great and is able to stabilize those housing situations for folks. And so that was I wanted to land there and just land on the impact that the centers are making, and that the investment that MMCRC has been making in with the community centers has just been making such a great impact, and we hope to continue to make that impact with MMCRC and with the manufactured communities for years to come. So I just want to give appreciation to Rick and your team, that all the work that you do and partnering and uncovering the needs of the community, of the manufactured communities, and just really value the support and collaboration that we've had with your program over the decades. So I will leave it there, and thank you for listening to all that information. I appreciate the time. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about that.
Patrick, can you share that PowerPoint?
Yeah, definitely. I'll be happy to send that, or maybe I'll send it to Cindy, and then if Cindy, you might be able to share that around, that'd be wonderful.
Great.
Great. Hearing no others, and I guess that clarifying piece for, I think everyone is aware, but the statute that has the mandatory mediation, there is a carve out that rent issues are not part of the mandatory program, as well as unlawful occupants and a few other items is not within that current statute of mandatory mediation. And Rick, if there's no other.
Brian. I have no idea what's going on. Patrick, I wanted to say that in not going to court, there's no court record for that tenant. There's no FBD behind their name. Like when I file in court, however it's resolved in court, there's a record with their name. And this eliminates that.
So it doesn't eliminate the record
They
of
don't
the
end up with a court
filing.
record, that I know of, if we go through mediation.
It doesn't. And John, you're welcome to speak to this as well, but it doesn't eliminate the record of the filing. But there's no eviction judgment that occurs if the mediation agreement is filed and the judge accepts that, and then if the agreement is satisfied, which we also see very high durability rates for these mediated agreements. And so if they're satisfied, then the eviction judgment never is placed in court. So, but the actual filing doesn't go away, but the eviction judgment never occurs.
So a mediation could lead to lots of different resolutions in an FED.
Where is it?
One of them, am I speaking? One of them is a stipulated agreement. And I think that's what Patrick has been describing, where the parties agree that something will happen.
Hey, I just want to jump in. Pat's the one asking these questions, and she can't hear us and is having an echo. So I'm just wondering if we can resolve that before jumping into some of her answers.
Pat, can you log out and then log back in and see if that helps?
Or sometimes if you turn off your camera.
Oh, she can't hear that either. Okay.
It was her second box was what her sound was, and we removed that because of the echo. So she's got one camera on, one and sound on another. So it's on Pat's end.
I'll email her and see if we can't resolve that. I don't know if you guys can move forward with something else right now.
She's saying no sound.
She may know Morse code.
Okay.
Oh, we heard you too.
So I was going to try to answer Pat's question. There are lots of different ways in which an FED can be resolved, but I think in almost all those ways, there's going to be some record in the court, unless the case gets expunged, which there's been statutory changes to make it easier to expunge FED results. That can't.
But I can read.
Oh, that's interesting that we can hear her, but she can't hear us. Yeah.
It's Angela. I also just had a hard time logging in. Sorry I was late. Is it me? I'm on a Mac, and I know Macs don't play well with Microsoft sometimes. So I don't know if I was the only one. James sent me a link, and that second link worked for me. Sounds like I was the only one.
No, I had a difficult time as well.
Go ahead. I think she's logged. There's Pat. We'll find out. Can you hear us now, Pat?
Jeez.
But I can do it in the chat. No chat.
Again, technology.
Speaking. Oh,
You're good. There's no echo either.
okay. Oh,
Yeah. Okay, we hear her. There you go.
We hear her, but does she hear us?
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Pat?
Hey guys, she can't hear us. I'm on the phone with her and trying to help her out. Hold on.
Thank you.
So, well, if you're on the phone, why don't you tell her that that Samantha tried to answer her question in the chat?
And then ask her to dial in on the phone to the meeting, if you could, please.
Can you hear us okay? Great. Okay, bye. I think she should be able to hear us now.
Okay, give it a try, John or Samantha.
Can you hear us okay, Pat?
Yes.
Okay, great. John, do you want
Nice.
to
Go
take this
team.
one?
No, you've got two comments in the chat and both of them are good. I think Pat ought to read those. The only thing I would add is that a mediation could lead to an agreement that the landlord dismisses the FED, but even that will show up on the court record.
Yes, thanks, John.
Yeah, Pat, so what, John, your question was about the initial filing, and so the filing doesn't go away, but a mediated agreement can be entered into the court as a stipulated agreement, and then and if it's followed, then it won't lead to an eviction judgment. And so there would not be a judgment, but the filing would still be in the court record.
I think that every case is supposed to end in a decision with a judgment, and that judgment could be a judgment of dismissal.
Thank you,
But
John.
they don't go away unless they get expunged.
Yeah, that something has to happen. So like once the case is filed, they're going to set a first appearance. And then, if people don't show up, it's defaulted, it goes away, right? And so once the case has been started, things have to happen, right? So, but if mediation occurs, then either that goes well, they're going to dismiss the case or file a stipulated agreement, or it doesn't result in a decision at all. There's no mediated agreement, then the case goes forward per normal. But regardless, there's going to have to be a court decision. If the stipulated agreement goes in, then if no notice of noncompliance has been filed, then within 12 months, the court will just automatically go ahead and dismiss the case without notice from any party.
So
But John's
just
right,
to
there
say-
has to be a decision. It won't just sit out there
Just to say
unless
that
a mistake has
mediation,
been made.
mediation doesn't make the court record disappear. But there is a statute in Chapter 90 that talks about what landlords can rely on in considering an applicant. And if it's dismissed, they're not supposed to rely on that. So it's fairly complicated. I wouldn't go around telling people that mediation will prevent showing up on your record.
Well, we've done mediation, but I guess I didn't know I should go file in court before we did mediation.
No. If you did not file, that's great. Then there will be no record.
Yeah.
And if mediation resolves the case before the landlord files, great. There's no court record.
Yeah, I would only go and file if the mediation we didn't work. We came to no agreement or the agreement wasn't followed.
Good.
That's great. Thanks for that clarification, Pat.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the justice courts are not courts of record, so those ones are not on record? Or that's how they say it to me, so help me or help us understand that those records aren't there, or they're there, but it's harder to get.
So Heather, you're in Clackamas County, is that right?
No, well, no, I have multiple counties, but Marion, we do have a justice court.
So Clackamas County is big on doing FEDs in justice court. And I think that's correct. Justice courts are not courts of record. They're not even under the control of the Chief Justice or the state court administrator.
Abby nodding in agreement with that as well. So on that, other questions or discussion points from Patrick's presentation? And if not, we can move forward to the status of the center's grants, and known as Rick, who is on the agenda for that item.
Okay. So all agreements are out. We're waiting on some signatures to be sent back. We're moving back to quarterly invoices as opposed to a one lump sum. If we go back in time for a little bit, and that one time we had $2 million from another program that needed to be utilized before the biennium. So that's what inspired the one-time large grant. And now we're back to reality and utilizing only MMCRC funds. So that's why we have such a dramatic, wouldn't even be the word, I'll say dramatic reduction in funding. So anyway, one thing we were able to work with was with our procurement department to really take a look at the insurances and what was really needed. So it did relieve some pain thresholds getting insurance, not all. And then, excuse me, where one of the requirements we're definitely need will be for all CDRCs to report on Qualtrics, all manufactured housing mediations, so that we could determine for the next biennium exactly, what type of, or not what type, but the number of mediations each CDRC is doing, so then we can adjust or try to adjust funding to make sure we can help. So that's going to be critical for us, is that everyone reports all of their manufactured housing mediation, so that we can determine funding for the following biennium. I don't ever foresee ever going back to the levels of funding you've seen. I know in the last biennium we had numerous different fundings that came across. And of you all, I'm sure everyone's heard that, the budgeting for this biennium, we were reduced to a little over 20%. So we cuts all across the agency. So we're looking at that, and I'll address it more. Because we're talking about increasing fees, and the agency itself, it's a big conversation right now that we're looking at as an agency. But as far as the grants, we're going to be monitoring those, see, and especially the Qualtrics, see how it's going, what's happening, what we can do with that. Let's see. Pat, there were some new ones. I know there's some new ones that are coming on board, and you were talking about that there's a meeting about mid-July to get those on board, or what's happening with that, if you don't mind me asking?
So who is that question?
Patrick?
Oh, Patrick.
Sorry, I said
you're
Pat.
talking about that there are some new CDRCs.
Yeah.
And changes, and which I guess was my clarifying one when you said all grants, that was everyone who currently had
correct
done as an extension, but there's also
some new ones that we're waiting to see what's happening with those, and then we did set aside. So, but not all new ones will be receiving funding. So, Patrick, if you're still on course for that, or have those already been looked at?
Yeah, I messaged you and Shauna last week. I'm happy to resend that message. I sent all the names of everybody that was awarded grants from my office. So I'll resend that out here in just a minute as well.
I may have it. I just can't imagine what I'm getting right now because of the budget reductions.
Yeah, I could. I'll resend it so it kind of pushes back up to the top of your box. But yeah, it's probably in there somewhere.
Appreciate it.
And with that, Rick, is there going to be new invoicing forms and process for this quarterly invoicing? And if so, did those come out with the amendment, or is that?
Well, I would say there'll be little revisions on them, but that's for the most part that the answer to your question would be yes. They'll be sent out, not with the agreement, but they'll be sent out.
Great. And I know there was a couple of the municipal ones that were working on getting through their process, which is a little more
involved.
Involved in that.
And then lastly, the to kind of complete the process for the last biennium, we'll need everyone's final reports July 31st, so we can get all that out. Any funds that were not expended, we'll have to turn around and invoice you folks for those to send back. So, and we could talk offline for those who have questions on that. Shauna is out, as you guys know, or if you don't know, she's out for the month of July. So please make sure and contact me. And that's it for grants right now, unless someone has specific questions.
Great. And then we have it labeled as a legislative update, though it's the legislative summary, I guess, would probably be a more appropriate one. And that's Nathan and John.
Nathan, you want to go first?
Oh, I was going to defer to you.
Okay. I'll talk about. Pardon?
I was asking if you needed a mediator to figure out who was going to go first.
So I'll talk about a couple things, things that I worked on. First, to note that, who was it? Rick talked about the agency budget cut for HCS. Those cuts, I assume, included significant cuts, 70% to last biennium's budget amount for eviction defense, which means lawyers in our offices that statewide defended FEDs. I think we had about 20 lawyers doing that work because they can appear remotely in court now from Portland or Eugene. We have one in the Eugene office. So a 20%, I mean, a 70% cut ended up for eviction defense and rent assistance. So rent assistance is a big part of settling FEDs since they're usually for non-payment, and getting rent assistance can avoid the FED. So that's going to have a negative impact on tenants. Statewide, I assume it would have a negative impact on CDRCs in terms of the availability of rent assistance. So that's one item to report on. The other that's a more positive thing is that HB 3144 passed. 3144 was a Rep. Marsh bill. Its effective date is January 1. It does two things. It prohibits developers from prohibiting placement of manufactured housing in planned communities that are for single-family residential. So it's just trying to make manufactured housing be used in more developments. That's prospective. It's not retroactive. And then the second thing it does is extend Senate Bill 586 provision for a position that Samantha holds. Not that Samantha has to hold it for the rest of her life, but that position, the authority for that position is extended, and that not necessarily the funding, just the authority for that position, and extending the authority for the Dispute Resolution Advisory Committee. So that's House Bill 3144. And so Nathan just put that into the chat. The other bill that I worked on is 3054. That was a Rep. Marsh bill, and that capped rent increases. The significant thing it did was to cap rent increases for manufactured housing and marina, floating home marina tenancies at 6%, instead of the standard rental housing rent increase cap of 7% plus CPI capped at 10. So it also provides every 5 years, a landlord can do a 12% annual increase for significant infrastructure improvements if the tenants support that. That's all I have to report.
I'll be quick as well. I'm gonna, is it okay for me to share my screen? I have just couple little slides to show. I'll do more of an overall view. Sorry, I gotta redo my screens here. Give me just one second. I'll do just a quick little overview for OHCS as a whole. As I said earlier, my name is Nathan Clark. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm on the government relations team at OHCS. I support our homeownership division, and within that, the MMCRC. We received an overall budget of $3.47 billion. And some of the highlights below, we divide up in our divisions. So Housing Stabilization Division, 387 million, 630 million for the affordable rental housing, 111 million for homeownership division. And then in our disaster recovery and resilience division, received the 170 million expenditure limitation request that they did. Overall, we saw a lot of cuts, as at every agency. We are really fortunate in which we did not have any staff changes compared to other agencies. As I'm sure many of you are aware, some of our fellow ones are having some large layoffs. So we are really fortunate in that regard, but we did lose a lot of funding for critical services. I'll go over our homeownership group real quick, since that's what I support. We received 100 million in for LIFT. Those are Article 11Q bonds. Our down payment assistance lending program received 3.9 million. Our foreclosure avoidance counseling received 2 million. And then we received 2.5 million for manufactured park preservation, which was down from the request that we had made. And that had originally been under the affordable rental housing division, but that transfer is being made so that it can come under the MMCRC, which is exciting. So everything will be under one place. And that's to support folks who are trying to buy their parks. And then 2 million for manufactured home replacement. That is down from the 2.5 million requested that in the GRB. But we did have some good conversations with folks on housing committees on both sides of the legislature, talking about the need for manufactured home replacement across the state, and how that continues to increase, and that, you know, we will need to continue to get more in the next session. And then my last slide is just a couple bills, the 3144 that John went into, and then 2698, which established a statewide goal for homeownership, that we will now be sharing public data on that within our website. So that's kind of it from me. I will share that on July 10th at 2 o'clock, we have an external partner webinar with Director Bell. I can have Cindy share that link when I have it with folks who are interested, and that's going to be a whole overview of our agency's legislative approved budget.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from the members on anything? If not, thank you both for that great piece. And with that, hearing none, we'll move forward into the mediation data update from Stephen. And I'm not sure if Ken is here or not.
Ken is out today. Yeah,
okay.
Ken is out today.
So you're up, Stephen.
Good morning, everyone. This will just be a quick overview of the data that was submitted last month, and also provide can you guys hear that? I hope you guys, there's a train passing by. All right, let me just mute for a second. Sorry about that. I think it's going by now. All right. So yes, just a quick overview of the data that was submitted last quarter. The participation rate went up. We saw 86 participants. Most of the mediations that we had were initiated by the tenants, and all the majority of the mediations were what we just consider standard mediations. What was interesting is that 100% of all the mediations that we saw were mandatory. Usually there's a good mixture between mandatory and voluntary mediation sessions. Most of the issues that were lobbied to us were concerning neighbor issues. And the good thing that I do want to highlight here is that last quarter we saw that 80% of the mediation cases that were reported to us resulted in complete agreement. And what I do want to share in this report are two things. First of all, do want to share that if you want to dig into data for your specific centers, there's two ways that you can go about doing this. Within the report itself, it does not just show information for the last quarter. It actually goes back, I want to say, till 2021. And the way that you can do that, if you can use these filters at the top of the Excel sheet. So you can filter by the CDRC itself. And of course, when you click that, you'll have a menu here. The way that you usually specify to a specific CDRC, the easiest way to do this is by clicking select all and go to a specific one that you want to look on and just have that one be the only one selected. And what to see all of what's been submitted since 2021 and see their total. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, and there you can see that since 2021, 380 total participants, and you can get a good overview. And if you want to see it by a yearly basis, you can also do that by using the quarter filter. And again, selecting all to deselect everything, and let's just do the last 4 quarters. And now you can get a good idea of what's happening throughout whatever time period that you specify. And the new feature within this report, there's a lot going on in this Excel sheet. Again, I know I've lobbied. I was setting up a new process, but that's for another conversation. But to add some more functionality that may be useful if you want to share with other folks that's not too involved with the data itself, is the summary viz. Very bare bones, but what this does, and of course this applies to all centers, is that you can see basically a snapshot of the trends that are happening for the major data points. So right now we have it for for the resolutions results, the amount of clients, and we do that by total participants and also the number of surveys. There is a nuance between all the total participants and the actual surveys that the participation is reported on. And we also show the type of mediation service offered and the type of issues mediated. I think I saw a message just now from Anne. This should be within the latest report that was sent out. So, so for example, a trend that we can observe in the last year is that you can see that the complete agreement, depending on the quarter, moves in a certain direction, which is usually up. But you can see in the last quarter, I don't know what's happened, compared to the previous quarter, our complete agreement rate went up. So I can say this means that our folks are doing amazing work out there, which is great, And of course, that makes sense. That means that the type of mediation is usually the standard. It's going up over time compared to the last 4 quarters. Yes, I will see if I can share this in the chat right here afterwards. And this is more haphazard, but the interesting thing to note here is that in the last quarter, a lot of folks are taking the opportunity to actually explain the specifics of the case that doesn't fall within either rule violations, maintenance, unpaid rent, or neighborhood issues. So yeah, so that's something to look out for in the upcoming reports. As I said, very bare bones, but you can still get an idea of the trends that's happening over each quarters. And of course, within the same report, we have it broken down by county just to get an idea of the different counties serves and how much cases that we're seeing from the different counties. And we have it by court connected cases and floating home marinas. So yeah, that's all that I have to share with you folks this morning. Stop sharing. And I'll
This
put
is
this in the chat.
Angela. I have a question.
Yes.
So is any of this information, can we share it with OSTA members or with the public? Some of the success rates and what's happening in that spreadsheet? Not the detail, but just, hey, whatever the numbers were, 86% result in satisfaction. And the reason I ask is because somebody wrote in on our Facebook group and said that mediation doesn't work. And so you can imagine my response to them, told them, well, the data doesn't support that claim. And they had some other words because they had been through it. Of course, I've been through it, and I think it's amazing. I think it's an incredible tool. So just helping the community understand the benefits, I think, would be a good thing. And so being able to share some of that data with them instead of just having a generic person on Facebook telling them they're wrong would be helpful.
I think Rick.
Yeah, you could share the data, but not the report.
Okay.
That'd be the best way to say it.
So I could say, hey.
Yeah, because we're going to
they're
make it public
tracking it.
at the end of the, because we're going to make it public anyway.
Okay, great.
Not the report, the data.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be emailing it or posting.
No worries. Yeah.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still can't believe that there aren't just hundreds and hundreds of people using it all the time.
Stephen, I want to ask you a question about the data. Can you put up the grand total chart?
No problem. And what exactly? Which total?
Yeah, that chart right there, where the grand total is on the bottom.
Yeah.
So that, help me here, because it seems to me that it's showing that 65% of the cases were initiated by the tenant, 35% by the manager or the landlord.
Yeah.
And yet I thought you said a minute ago, or several minutes ago, that 100% of the cases were initiated by the tenant.
Oh, okay. I see the confusion. So all of the information that I shared in that very brief conversation was in regards to the last quarter. So if I reset,
so this grand total is cumulative?
Yes.
Okay.
This grand total is cumulative for the entire, well, not the entire program, for the entire reporting period that we have here.
Okay.
So that 100% only, let's set it back to the default state. Get all these settings back. Okay. So this subtotal only for the last quarter. So we have it only for 2025 quarter 2, the CDRCs that are reported, and 100 was that mandatory mediation. So, and for the last quarter, I wonder if I should change this, but the last quarter, you can see that the tenant, for those that initiated the mediation, was 83% of the tenants that were doing that, compared to the overall, which is usually 65. Does that answer your question?
And the voluntary versus mandatory.
That's good.
So that was 100% last quarter, but cumulatively for the year, it's 65-35?
This cumulative, it's going back to 2021. And you can, yeah. So if you wanted to see for the last year, but now you'd have to keep this number in mind. But if you wanted to get that information for the last year.
No, I'm just trying to understand what data you're giving us. And so what you're saying is that the grand total is since 21.
Yeah.
And this current quarter is different.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
It also appears that a significant number of cases have involved non-payment, and that's not going to be mandatory mediation.
Interesting. But yes, I'll put the report here in the chat.
And before you go, could you really quickly show us one more time how to access the floating home only data? How you did that? That was fast.
Oh, I'm sorry about it. Yes. So the
that's
floating
okay.
home data is just another sheet at the bottom of the Excel. So at the bottom here, these are basically different sheets or tabs, and the floating home, probably should spell it out, but it's the one that says FHM.
I got you.
And
Thank you.
yes. And
Perfect,
it's
thank you.
very bare bones, as I said. Of course, if you wanted to get like really specific data, these are stuff that you can request.
Okay.
All right.
And on that, Stephen, would it be possible for you to generate a report from July 1, 24 through June 30, 25 that just has the agency, the date the case was open, the county, and the case ID, and send that to each of the centers so we could there, and it would allow me to cross-check to make sure I actually submitted everything I have. But those are the only things I would need is the date open and the case ID, and county's helpful but not required, but and of course the agency name.
Yes, that is possible. We've done this before. People have reached, different centers have reached out to us to do exactly what you asked. So it is possible, takes a while. And of course, I want to emphasize, this all depends on what was submitted to us in the first place. So if the case ID wasn't submitted, we don't have it. Makes sense.
No, I get
but
that
yes.
if it's blank, but it for my agency, it would be helpful to cross-check to say, oh, here's everything that was submitted. Oh, I have these 4 other cases that got skipped, and then get it submitted to you so you have that data.
And I do want to also say I understand the issues is that for the type of data and for the type of detail that we'd want, Qualtrics is not the best way to do it, but we make it work.
Yeah, which is where, again, was trying to keep it simple by only having 3 data points, which would be the agency, the date opened, and the case ID.
Got it. We can do that. I think, Abigail?
And Rick, I guess the other one is, I know outside of this group, I have not received a copy of that report. And again, just want to make sure it is that full report is being shared out to all the CDRCs. And we have a number of them here, and they could probably say, yeah, they did get it. Maybe it's just me or not, but would like to make sure those are actually getting out to the centers.
This particular report?
This, as an example, this report, I know we've asked and made the suggestion that your office send that out to all the providers. But as far as myself, the only place I have seen it is within the DRAC meeting environment. I have not had it received.
I'm sorry, I was in an assumption you guys can access the report anytime you want.
I don't believe so.
Oh, so then, so the report that you fill out, isn't this same report?
Yeah,
these are 2 different reports.
We just put in the data points. We don't get the summary piece that is generated that Stephen shares.
Gotcha.
We don't have.
No worries. Yeah, Stephen, if you could put the link in here, then at least everyone has access at any time they want. And then we could look at sending out a report every quarter. What are you asking, Brian? Every month,
I mean,
every quarter?
That would be great, but I just, even if it got sent out at some point, and not only to the membership, but I'm saying everyone who has a grant, because there's a number of
Yeah.
centers that aren't at these meetings.
Yeah,
even-
my apologies. For some reason, I was thinking that this particular report is that anyone can access that. So we'll definitely remedy that, number one, as far as access, and then we can definitely put that on our calendar to send out a report every. Are you thinking every month, every quarter? Or what are you thinking as far
You
as?
know what, make it a work maker. I was thinking even if it was, I mean, quarter, I think would be fine, or whatever. he
quarterly's
generates. I see
Yeah.
Abby has hand up.
Yeah. Go ahead, Abby.
Not hearing you.
I did the wrong one. I was gonna say it's okay. You can continue if.
Oh,
go ahead. Okay. Maybe we're getting to it next, so I don't know, but I love seeing our data, and it helps me to see a whole picture of what we're all working together towards for these tenants and clients. And so I'm curious if do we see the legal aid data as well? Does OLC have reports on that too?
There was one shared last quarter, but at the meeting, but I hadn't seen one since then.
Okay.
And I know, and I did, was curious to it.
Okay, good. So we're probably not doing it today, but it sounds like we do get that data too, that we can see as a whole picture of how the mediation's working and how the legal aid's working together. Is that something that's collected, Stephen? It's not.
I'm afraid. Yeah.
Okay, and why is that?
Different funding sources, different processes. So Oregon Law Center does calculate the effects of the Eviction Defense Project program that the legislature funded, although I just said earlier it got cut by 70% going forward for the next biennium. In Sybil Hebb's testimony to the legislature, she would have, I'm not involved in that, but she would have described the results of those interventions by our lawyers who do the Eviction Defense Project. I think my vague memory is that they're very successful. They're often intervening early in the process because the eviction notice is defective. And so the quickest way to kick out an eviction case would be for the lawyer to contact the court or the landlord and say, your notice is defective, you need to start over again.
John, I'm so sorry. Can I jump in? I'm just a little confused because you said that we're different funding streams, but we're in the MMCRC funding conversation. That's what I'm curious about. I'm not curious about the data. I mean, I am curious about the data and what you all are doing, but if we're talking about the MMCRC and we're doing our data, I just am curious. It sounds like you all aren't pulling that data. You're reporting it somewhere else. Is that right?
MMCRC does not have a role in the Oregon Law Center's eviction defense program.
Not in the funding?
Right.
Yeah, the only thing we're going to report is what Ken had referred to OLC, and that's it. But they can, I'm not sure how other clients arrive at OLC, so we couldn't monitor that.
Okay, well, we do monitor those. I'm curious because I like when I'm talking to our clients, I want to know how are they getting those services, and I just want more of a communication between the offices.
Yeah, MMCRC wouldn't have that information. All we could tell you is that how many we were referred.
Okay.
And to make it more complicated, MMCRC does track the referrals to Samantha. And Samantha is not part of the Oregon Law Center's eviction defense program. That's a separate program.
Right.
That's the one that got cut by 70%.
I think Abby's just referring to the funds that flow through this DRAC committee, or that this DRAC committee doesn't not flow through. Let me correct that. That this committee makes some recommendations or looks at the funding that goes for the legal services that are provided to MMCRC folks. And I think Abby was referring to just the number, like what's the outcome of the dollars that are spent there? Where are the reports that come from that piece? Not OLC, not eviction defense broadly, but just like the reporting that's coming through that we were just looking at is based on the funding that the CDRCs get. There's also 100 or 200,000 or something like that goes that goes to OLC for this project. Where's the data? That piece, is that, Abby, is that what you
Yep.
were?
Yeah, and again, we have the information on how many referrals went to OLC,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah, I
don't
think-
have outcome. We don't collect outcome.
And that's okay. I think for me, it helps to see the big picture. Like if we're looking at our data and our outcomes, I want to see what the outcomes are on both sides. So I just can understand the bigger what's happening, right? Because I think that the people need services, and I want us all to be working together to make sure with the best we can to get the work to them.
Was there a question in
So
that?
just to clarify, the funding that comes to OLC through that bill funds just my position, just me. So
Yeah.
there's one attorney that MMCRC funds work for.
I guess I'm just confused, but you don't enter your outcomes anywhere.
Yes, I do. I track
Okay.
my outcomes. I tracked all my client work, and we send quarterly grant reports, but it's not.
It's not a data report that we get to look at.
Yeah, I don't think that is, I mean, that's
Okay,
not in our contract or in the bill, so that's not something we've done. I mean, I'd leave that up to Rick if that's something that he would want to try and put together. Again, like there are, with attorney-client privilege and stuff, we have to be careful with what we share and
kinda what
how
I'm
we redact
concerned
stuff,
about,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, same.
But that information is tracked, right? Like it's not like it's just going into a black box nowhere. I think it's more like can we share it? Because I track it myself, right? I have my own, I made my own Excel spreadsheet. I type in all of the information of every client that, I'm doing that all on my own, right? It's not, we don't have like a system to track that information apart from me manually tracking it, right?
Yeah,
So
and
the more
same-
time we spend doing that kind of stuff, the less time we spend doing client stuff. It's just, it's a.
I hear you, girl.
Yeah.
I hear you. I think what's important for me just to highlight, and you all can make the decisions you want to around it. Rick, you're in charge, right? And I did hear you say that our data tracking is going to impact funding for next biennium. And I'm not, and if we're pulling from a same funding source, I personally would like to see the data coming from the other partners in our funding source. And I'll leave it there, which thank you for hearing me, and I'll stop. Thanks.
Yeah. So, and I think this kind of leads into that next piece that we have on the agenda is the
Brian, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I've been holding a question while that whole conversation was being
Okay.
listened. I have one last question for Steven.
I didn't see your hand. Sorry.
No, I forgot. I really have a hard time navigating the teams, so I'm not sure where everything is yet, but I'm learning. So Steven or Rick, on the spreadsheet on the floating homes tab, I would expect to see a large number of participants from Multnomah County and Columbia County. Now, I know Columbia County doesn't have their own CDRC that I know of, so they use other, like presumably Washington counties. But there are a number of Marion County participants and Morrow County and places where I don't believe there are any floating houses. So is that what's happening? Is that maybe Columbia County is just trying to figure out where to use mediation, or is that something we should take a look at maybe offline and see how those floating home mediations are happening in counties that don't have floating homes?
I would say that
And I'm looking at the numbers and going, did we really do that many floating home cases? So I noted it and went, wow, I gotta go look and see what got checked to make it do that, because I'm suspicious of my report.
There is a possibility. Most of the The way that we determine that they're floating homes is not self-reported, but basically it's if the park in our system, if the park is identified as a floating home park or marina, because that is something that I question myself, but they are parks that they're not exactly floating homes, but there is a different destination where they're considered a marina. And then once again, it is something that is basically self-reported. So it is something that we can look at deeper, but I'm pretty sure that I could be wrong, but when I double check this data, uh, m- these are based on the designation that we have on the parks.
And,
So, yeah.
and
I don't
so
know if
I'm,
that helps, but
and Stephen, I'm assuming it's always generated because there's one question that says, is this a marina or floating
yes.
home? And it's a yes or no.
Yep.
But I'm curious, is it one that is, if it is being left blank, is then finding its way to the.
No, I don't. That is possible. I will say that is possible, but I think that is very unlikely.
Okay, no, that was that piece. And along those lines, I guess, yeah, if we're capturing those manufactured and floating homes as well, because I know I had a conversation, we were searching and noticing that there weren't a lot of marinas and manufactured marinas within the current database as far as marinas that when we search for that, and I don't know if those have made its way into that state database where you search for parks by counties and others.
So I hope I answered. I think it was Angela's
Yes.
question. Okay.
Yes.
Or is there something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, so when you said that it's pulling the data where something is marked as a floating home, is that
Mhm.
data from the landlord registration, or where is that data coming from? There are a total of maybe just under 70 or so floating
Mhm.
home marinas in all of Oregon, and only a portion of those are scenarios in which the floating homeowners rent their slips. So, I mean, it's a pretty short list.
Got it. So I understand that, and this ties into the statement that Brian just made, is that we recently incorporated basically that exact list into our database, and that is also something that is searchable on or a map on the website. But to answer your specific question, this in this report, the way that the way that we determine that a specific park is a floated home marina is if there's a specific question that's asked, which Brian alluded to, if it's yes or no, and if they put yes, then we count that specific case as coming from a floating home marina. So I will concede that it is possible that, someone might put yes when it's not actually a floating home marina, but most of what is being tracked, I double checked it, they are floating home marinas, or it was uh, identified in that specific case as a floating home marina. So that is something that we can check in the future, and I'll get back to you guys. But yeah.
And I think where this is kind of leading is, and I want to move on to that one about the funding. It's everyone's desire to make sure we have good data and stuff, so we have the support of the statistics and the numbers to make that. And I hear Angela is one of those ones of going, okay, do we have all the marinas be currently within the register, and have they all registered and paid their money into the fund? And so with that, Rick, this is you and John. And I know John just sent out a email as well this morning.
Oh, okay. I haven't opened up anything.
About
I sent, thanks, Brian. I sent that email at about 1 minute to 10. And I didn't have everybody on it because I was responding to an email from Shauna in April of a meeting notice. And so I used that as my list of people to reply to. And there's quite a few new people that I wouldn't have included. So I don't know whether somebody has the capacity to post that in the chat. I'm happy to resend it to those who didn't get it if you let me know. And all this is my idea of how this group might proceed if it wishes to seek more funding for 3 categories. MMCRC, I'm not clear from Rick and others over the last year or so, the status of MMCRC in terms of its funding needs. 2, the CDRCs, because it sounds like they feel like they're underfunded. And then 3, additional or continued funding for Samantha's position, because the initial funding for that was for a 4-year period, and we're I think in the 3rd or 4th year of that 4-year period. Now, background here is that MMCRC doesn't get any general fund, as far as I know. And in fact, the program was set up in 1989, when the original founders of OSTA got a bill adopted that taxed themselves with a special assessment that they pay with their property taxes. Some people don't realize this, but manufactured home park tenants and marina tenants pay property taxes on their homes. There's some exceptions to that, exemptions for low value homes in the big 4 counties, Multnomah, Washington, Clackamas, and Lane, but otherwise they have to pay. And for years that produced a fair amount of money. The tenants increased that amount. I can't remember what year, I've got it somewhere. I think in the late 1990s to $7 a year. Initially it was $3, and it went to $7, and then it went to 10 a couple of years ago. But that 10 really effectively for MMCRC is only 8.5, because we agreed then to commit $1.50 of that $10 to the county assessors for collecting it. So that's a bit of background there. Nathan very kindly provided data to Representative Marsh, whom I had asked for help in trying to figure out what the status is of that. When Senate Bill 586 was adopted in, 2019, that created the position that Samantha fills, and that created the Dispute Resolution Advisory Committee, and that created mandatory mediation. The assumption was that there was enough money from the tenant special assessment to cover all those things. I'm not clear on that assumption anymore, and that would be something that I think would be necessary to figure out. Nathan provided some data to Rep. Marsh in January about that. I also know that Patrick has shared with some people, including Rep. Marsh, a proposal that he had come up with for how to increase money that would go to the CDRCs. There are 2 funding sources involved here, well, besides general fund. And if it wasn't clear earlier, I wouldn't count on getting any new general fund money for the next 2 to 4 years. I watched a hearing late in the session regarding funding for IDAs, individual development accounts, in which the House Revenue Committee regretted not increasing that more. And one legislator, Representative Reschke, who's a fiscal conservative, said that he was hoping to come back in 2026 and get more money, to which Rep. Marsh said, don't think that. It's not going to happen in 26. So I think general fund funding is a stretch for the next couple of years. So that leaves the other 2 sources, the special assessment and the landlord registration fee. So landlords pay a registration fee of either $50 or $100 a year based on size. It's I think the size break is 20 spaces. And that doesn't generate a whole lot of money. When the old coalition negotiated that, the assumption was that fee would be enough to cover MMCRC's staff work on registering landlords, park landlords, and monitoring their compliance with the mandatory education requirement. I don't know that that's true. I haven't looked at it or been able to look at it since then. So I think what I've outlined here is what I think has to happen if people want to pursue additional funding. I would like to pursue additional funding for Samantha's position. And I also want to make sure that MMCRC is adequately funded, because I think it's an important service to both landlords and tenants. For the CDRCs, I'm supportive of that, although I'd want to make sure that any increase is aimed at serving manufactured home and marina tenancies and not the other disputes that the CDRCs do, because I know they get other disputes that they work on. I think what's necessary, what I've tried to outline here, is that you would need to, all three of those entities would need to figure out what the need is. How much money is needed to serve those purposes? And I assume it's more money than they're all getting now. And then you would need to figure out how you might get that money, and you would probably need a process to get support from those groups, from the landlord group and from the tenant group and from DAS, which controls the amount of money that MMCRC and HCS seek from the legislature. So I've suggested that those three groups ought to be trying to figure out the answer to that question, and then ask Rep. Marsh to convene a work group to see if there could be support for that. Keep in mind, I have not asked Rep. Marsh to do that yet. I've had these conversations with her off and on for more than a year, so she's aware of the issue. The session just ended 12 days ago. It was a very contentious ending. And usually after a contentious legislative session, people do not want to talk to anybody for a while. So I'm staying away from Rep. Marsh, but I will talk to her in August. So that's my idea. Nobody has to do it this way. You can do it whatever way you want, but that would be my recommendation for how to do it.
Okay, thanks, John. As you can imagine, our agency, with the cuts it had, we're still licking our wounds and waiting for the dust to settle to see exactly what we're dealing with. Even though we know the numbers, we still are dealing with what the impact of all that means. We have a new chief financial officer. I actually spoke with him last week, and in talking about what could be my next steps in order to move forward on this. And as you can imagine, he's like, I don't want to talk about anything right now. I'm still trying to figure out what we're doing. But in that conversation, he did say that, thanks, Stephen, that he and I will get together and take a look at the new budget and how what the expenses are for all the expenses are for MMCRC moving forward. What does that look like? From our original budget that we had put together, obviously all that is out the window. Now we're starting with a new budget, and what exactly that looks like. I'm the assistant director for two departments, for the MMCRC and the manufactured housing department. So in the MMCRC, it supports only 3 staff members. You'll see a lot of our staff in these meetings, just because I like to redundancy, make sure that we have coverage. Even if someone can't be here, we have people here that can assist in either taking notes or just giving us ideas of what's happening and gathering insights. But so the first step for us is meeting with, for me, is meeting with our county department and our chief financial officer to look at current budget, the way it's looking now, and then determining what it's going to take over, what kind of increase that the MMCRC is going to need in order to support itself. MMCRC doesn't support the manufactured housing department. It only supports itself. So in looking at that, we have to make sure that what that amount's going to be to cover as far as the amount of money we're going to need to cover those expenses. And then the other thing is you have to keep in mind, or if you don't know, these fees haven't been raised in over 12 years. So $50 and $100 is my initial thought was that it'll probably be raised somewhere between 400 and for 20 and under, and 700 for over. I mean, just to get even. And then if that's where we're going to be, then we're also looking at, okay, well then how long does that last before you have to raise it again? So all this, John's right. I mean, we got to take all this in consideration to try to figure out where along the line you have to raise it to where it makes sense. 12 years is too long. These should have been increased along the line, but not 12 years worth, because the initial is going to hurt, right? No matter what you raise it, landlords are going to, or owners are going to say, oh my gosh, why so much? Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I think to John's last comment, I think something to keep in mind is that landlords are also, coming off of a session where the legislature has further limited their ability to raise rent by 6% now. And so the double whammy of limiting their ability to raise rent while also further increasing mandatory fees is something that probably isn't going to sit well with a lot of owners. And so I think y'all should be prepared for some significant pushback from the ownership community.
I could imagine, but unfortunately, it's something that needs to be done. And I'll just say shame on us as an agency for not bringing up fees for the last 12, 6 biennium or 12 years, right? So now you got to make a change. So we're definitely preparing for that. And there'll be a lot of discussions, I'm sure, on that. And that's why we have to, in increasing the budget, whatever the amount is, it's going to have to make sense, because if we only raise it a little bit, then we're going to turn around in a couple of biennium and do it again. So, that's an argument for later. I'm just kind of bringing up the things we have to look at. And so once we have what it's going to take for MMCRC to do the work that it's been asked to do, and then we can come to the group and say, okay, this is what MMCRC needs. Now let's look at what other needs that, whether it's OLC, whether it's the mediation, CDRC grants, and the other expenses that we have to take that in consideration as to what that's going to take. And so determine then what these fees are going to be. And then of course the language, John, and I don't know what is possible, but, I don't know if we could change language so that we don't have amounts, and just a simple language that says that we could raise fees as needed for operational purposes. I don't know if that's possible. I didn't see that you still had your hand up, Bill. Forgive me. Let me just finish this thought. But I don't know if that's possible. If we just eliminate, the 20 and 50 or whatever those amounts are, and just basically change the language that we're able, that the agency could change the fees for operational purposes. I don't know if that's possible. But just food for thought. You don't have to really answer on that. I don't know if it needs to be chewed on or not. Bill, go ahead before I.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So I think that taking a step back, the work that the agencies are doing, or the mediation centers are doing, I think is a valuable service, and I think owners and landlords understand that. And I think that to the extent that the fee is tied to the services that we're talking about here, with it, I think that those would be more palatable. I think where you start getting the rub is when we're talking about funding attorneys that advise tenants. And so, and not saying that, that's obviously still authorized, but when tying the funding from the landlords for that position versus the funding from what the tenants are paying for the personal property taxes, I think that would be helpful with the narrative. And also I think, and this is to John and his group, is educating more about what that position does. Is that if it's more of the education side on tenants of allowing them to understand what the laws are and what their rights are, versus actually funding any positions that are potential litigation or sending demand letters and that sort of thing. I think that the former is more palatable than the latter. So just as that's assuming that folks want to make it more palatable to landlords and ownership to hopefully get consensus and buy-in. That's a better way to do it. When you're presenting these proposals. Just my thoughts.
So I would just add that I think the main point here is that, in my view, you would not be successful simply running through a fee increase for the tenants or the landlords without their buy-in.
Yeah, lots of nods in the group there. And hearing everyone talk about the importance of having good numbers and good data to help support the need as well as the benefit to balance. And yeah, Bill hit real clearly as far as, and I think the hard part is the folks that you represent in that are probably not the client base. It's that hard ones of, like you say, how do we educate those outliers of owners and tenants to help people understand and improve situations without being punitive on either side and that.
Yeah, and I'll just add too, to just keep in mind how the SB 586 attorney came about to begin with. I mean, prior to getting on this meeting today, I was interacting with a park tenant who's 72 years old, and management has a well that they manage, and they've been without water for weeks. The water continues to be turned off and turned on, and without any notice. And they just got a notice this morning that it's going to be turned off at 3. They're waiting for a part to come from Idaho for a pump that's not going to be here until next week. They have no recourse. They have no water. And clearly, water is an essential service as defined by law, but there is no oversight in Oregon that's going to call this park landlord and say, hey, bring in some water. So the tenants have organized and said, hey, you're violating our Chapter 90 rights. We have no drinking water. We can't wash our hands, flush our toilets, do anything. And the landlord's response is, I'm not breaking the law. Wait for the pump. So I'm just saying, let's not also forget the exact reason there is no oversight in Oregon to help tenants other than hire an attorney, which there are so few. I mean, let's just call it 0, except for maybe Samantha and a handful of others. So it's not just an educational thing. I have a tenant that needs water. They're not asking for the sky and the moon and the stars.
Yeah, no, that is the hard part of that, of being more positional than solution based. And I think Bill and both John were big supporters of this process to help have the focus more on solution versus that other one, and appreciate that. We're getting close on time. Anything else or any action item requests from any?
Yeah, Nathan, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted real quick, I'm supporting Rick in the process from our side at OHCS. My only concern at this point is from timeline. OHCS has discussed internally having this be a bill that we could request from the governor's office to do that. We are only allowed bills in the long session, so that would be something that would be in the 2027 session. Realistically, from my point of view as an agency, we would want to be, if it is coming from us, it will need to have some robust conversations. I sat in every single housing committee meeting that 3054 had. There was robust opposition understandably. And my goal as the person who would be running this bill, if it comes from OHCS, is to try to find a compromise that from the start. And so I think that that would, if there is a legislator who is interested in running this in the short session and we can work with them, that's great. You know, that's their prerogative and we can support them. From our side, we would need longer for engagement and to make sure that we have numbers that are viable for the next, I don't know, I like to plan that far out, but at least the next 2 to 3 bienniums, right? So that's my 2 cents if OHCS runs this process from our side.
So I don't know whether that means that what I proposed earlier was to see if Rep. Marsh wanted to lead an effort that might result in a bill in the 26th session. As Nathan indicated, Rep. Marsh can do whatever she wants, assuming she runs for re-election, which I don't know. This is not the right time to ask her that question either. But if she is interested, I think that the 3 interests, I don't know that the landlords need to prepare anything. They know what they could probably sit tight where they are. But I think the CDRCs would need to figure out how much money they need. It'd help if we had HCS and MMCRC participation in terms of how much money there is. The data that Nathan gave Rep. Marsh in January showed a decline in revenue from the tenant special assessment, a pretty significant decline, and I don't understand that. So it'd be, I think, important to try to figure that out because we do have some revenue.
If I could interject real quick, John, that's actually a very simple answer. We had one county overpay by 10 times the amount. So where their amount should have been one amount, it was tens of thousands of dollars over their amount, and so all that had to be reversed back out. So that was actually a clerical error. A clerical error by a county, and that's why it was a significant drop. Actually, we're talking more hundreds of thousands. I don't know how they did it or how you can mix up the two, but that's what happened.
Well, anyway, that just emphasized the importance of figuring out how much money we need to do both MMCRC and the CDRCs. So I guess if I were a CDRC, I would be trying to answer that question. I think Abby suggested that you all had done something like that. I thought that I read it, but that was months ago. In my reading, I thought, you're not going to get that kind of money from the landlords. So I think you need to think, well, if that's where you are, fine, and we can go forward and talk about it. If Rep. Marsh does want to do a work group to figure something out for the 26th session. I don't think I will be involved after the 26th session.
Mm.
So she has indicated, John, that she does want to do this?
No, not for sure. Just that she and I have had this conversation a number of times over the last year. And she talked to me about the CDRC proposal in January. And I think we both agreed that we wanted to put that off.
Okay, great.
And I'll just name that I'm going to be continuing to talk to our Clackamas lobbyist team about finding a legislator who's also interested in supporting our work. So just putting that out there and letting you all know that we're coming at multiple different angles here, which will hopefully benefit us all.
Your Clackamas lobbyist is excellent, and he did talk to me during the session, and I said, go away.
Thanks, Nathan, for that.
Anyways, we digress. And in that, the last item, just real quickly, is there were some updates to the mission statement and bylaws. Those got emailed out ahead of this meeting as required by the bylaws. And Rick, if I'm understanding correctly, you need a motion, a second, and approval of that revision?
Yes.
And Nat, from the membership, is there anyone who would like to make a motion for the changes. They were to change to a quarterly meeting versus a monthly. And I believe the other piece was about meeting remotely. Cindy, and I don't have it open right in front of me, but
I will make a motion to accept the changes as drafted or as sent to us.
great. Second.
Second.
Great. All in favor? I believe raising of a hand, be it electronic or other. I see all hands raised. Any opposed? See none. Any sustaining or abstaining, excuse me. Seeing none. Those amendments and changes move forward. Thank you. And we've already covered the House bill piece, so we don't need to do that. And I guess the last one is, Rick, the official announcement, even though Heather and I have been.
It's you and Heather. Congratulations.
Thank you. And with that, our next meeting will be October 1st from 10 to noon. And I thank everybody and enjoy everyone's participation. I especially thank and appreciate the additional directors and CDR folks showing up and participating, because it is that piece of getting all the voices, and I appreciate that. Appreciate everyone's ability to have a free-flowing conversation that doesn't require management.
Yeah, thank you so much.
With that, and we can have a great day.
Yeah, if my team could stick around real quick, and Cindy, you could stop recording.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Rick, do you want me or no?
No. We're who was that?
That was Nathan.